हेलो दोस्तों, कैसे हैं आप लोग। तो आज हम शुरू करेंगे लूसीफर टॉक्स का ये डिस्कशन सेशन एक स्पेशल गेस्ट के साथ। तो आज हमारे साथ है दीपिका। दीपिका इज इंडियन born but she is practicing in US and Canada. I will let Deepika tell a bit about herself first, and then we'll move into our question answer session. To you, Deepika.
Thank you, Danny. Such a pleasure to be here. So like Danny said, my name is Deepika. I'm a licensed professional counselor and a registered psychotherapist. And I've been practicing in this field for this is my 19th year. So it's been a while. I can talk about it. I was born in India, New Delhi, India. And then I was 16 when I moved with my family to Canada, to a small town called Sarnia, Ontario. All of my friends know this name because I have traumatic associations with this town. Coming from Delhi and moving to Sarnia, it was such a culture shock for us, and that was the time where for the first time in my life, I experienced some discrimination, bullying, racism. And the experiences were interesting. It was a new culture for me, social isolation. Of course, I came from I'm very extrovert, so coming from a socially fulfilled life in Delhi to moving to a small town in Sarnia, it was a difficult adjustment for us. And going to high school here was a completely different experience. So when I was 16, 17, that was the first time in my life I experienced depression. And I remember not being able to figure out how to cope with it and trying to talk to my parents about it. And it wasn't, of course, they were trying the best they could, but it wasn't as helpful. They weren't able to support as much because they were struggling themselves. And that was the first time in high school I remember a teacher recommended me to go speak with a guidance counselor. And for the very first time, I had an experience of speaking about something emotional to a person outside of my family, which, in our culture, we often talk about, ki ghar ki baat ghar mein rakho. Don't go out and talk to strangers about it. But that experience, this was a kind gentleman. He normalized my experience for me. He told me what depression looks like. He said that this is the path that a lot of international students face when they're coming to a new culture, a lot of immigrants face. And that experience just opened up my worldview. It was the best compassionate, empathic experience I could have gotten at that time in my life. And that was the moment I remember I said, one day I want to do the same thing for others. I want to help others who are struggling with emotional difficulties like this. And here I am 19 years later, still following my dream.
Pretty interesting, Deepika. For a lot of international students, immigrants, Canada is a dream, right? And
Yes.
They like to come to Canada. They all feel like it's a welcoming country, and it is to some extent. And we cannot blame Canada for a lot of things that turns out to be here with a lot of people, because we cannot change societies and we cannot change expectation of the people who are already here. But we need to take care of ourselves. We need to remain focused so that we don't fall in any trap. And the first thing is taking care of ourselves through being mentally fit, and that will help us grow in a better way. But I can see the perspective of any newcomer coming to Canada. The families are trying to fit in. They have the pressure to survive, pay the bills, and if the kids are with them, the kids are trying to find their own identity. And very recently, I was in a meeting and I heard someone saying the term that this person was going in a university here in Canada and was a lot of residents, and the person said whenever he was on the floor or he entered the floor, he used to hear the term, "Quite now, the NWK is on the floor." Right?
Wow.
So, and for me, it's like, what the heck is this NWK? And it was like non-white kid on the floor. So everyone will stop and do those things. It happens. I'm glad that you had a good experience with the person who provided you with assistance.
Absolutely.
And you chose to do things for others, because normally we have not seen a lot of people coming from South Asian background joining this particular field of career. Was it easy for you to relate it with your parents?
It was an interesting process. I'm so glad you're asking this question. By the way, I do want to add that going forward with my growing up in Canada enriched me in so many ways too. Like you said, there's so many things this country has also given to me. And growing up, I realized not only did I want acceptance from them, I also needed to change my view on coming to a new culture. So we can talk about that more. But
Yep.
talking about my parents, yes, absolutely. Being a science student throughout, my dad, and I understand where my parents were coming from. Their generation growing up in India, at least for my parents, the way I understand it is so much competition, right? There's survival of the fittest. We're an overpopulated nation and everybody wants the best for their kids. So their dream for us was, we want you to do a career that is lucrative, that will give you financial stability. And financial stability, when we talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we'll talk about it. It was an important consideration for my parents. And then suddenly I realized my heart wasn't in it. I sucked at math. I hated it. I did not want to be an engineer. I was good at science, but I didn't want to pursue it as a career. And I spoke to my dad about it. And initially, he had a difficult time. He asked me, Beta, what's going to be your future prospect? And the best thing he did for me, he said, prove it to me. Prove it that you will find your happiness through this, that it will be a financially stable environment for you. So I did my research. I presented my case. I said, look, these are the different avenues. He was actually doing that for my benefit, that these are the different avenues, Dad, that psychology can take me in. And of course, there were considerations about why not become a psychiatrist, who is also a medical doctor. So I volunteered at Center for Addiction and Mental Health for a few months to really get a feel for it. And I said, no, this is not for me. I want to talk to people. I want to help people go through everyday life situations, not just heavy duty mental health things.
Right.
He understood that's what my skill set was in. And so he adjusted. I'm very grateful to have parents who adapt with us. And we realized very early on that we wanted to create a life for ourselves that doesn't just look good. We wanted to create a life that feels good. And till date, he's so proud of me. This is the single most decision of my life, that I go to bed happy every night, and my dad couldn't be happier seeing me this happy. So that was my journey. And this is what I support a lot of my Indian younger clients who come to me, help them navigate that. We are not at odds with our parents. Perhaps there's a different way that we could help them understand that their end goal is our happiness. How do we navigate that? Right. How do we give them the confidence that our life choices will look after us? That's essentially what parents want, right?
True. It all has to do with the parenting style as well, right?
Yes.
And I'm sure it was easier for you to relate to your parents because they are well educated. So you need a parent who is educated. You need a parent who is a bit open-minded and is not under the pressure to push their own agenda on their kids because they were not able to do few things. Whereas when we see some of the family structures in Canada, in the West, where they move to this country, they are trying to survive and do a lot of things for themselves, but they're under peer pressure by other families of the similar cultural background telling them, my daughter is going to be a doctor, my son is going to be an engineer. And then mostly the South Asian and even Asian parents overall, they'll say, either you become a doctor or you become an engineer. These are the two fields. Other than that, don't look at anything else. And it's a struggle. And,
it is a struggle.
It's a struggle. And as a parent, I myself will say, my child would be free to choose whatever they want to do.
Awesome.
As long as they're going to be happy in what they want to do. If he or she chooses to take a program in arts, I think we should let them do it. Absolutely. So counseling is pretty interesting, Deepika, because you entered into counseling. What kind of experiences do you have with people? And when they come to you, like, it's all about treatment, but it's about listening to other person's perspective as well.
Right.
And then conveying a message that, yes, you need some support. Do they take it easily, or it takes some sessions for them to understand that they really need that support?
Ideally, people who are coming to me already know they need support, so I don't have to do a lot of salesmanship. But yes, when I do outreach in our communities, for example, it takes some effort to raise awareness about that. If you're, like you're saying about parents being strict with their kids, and you know, log kya kahenge is a major thing that we do in our culture. My encouragement is, I hope we can become a society where we can ask each other, "Aapke bacche khush hain?" बजाय ये पूछने की कि आपके बच्चे successful हैं. Success doesn't always equate happiness, and my role, if I have to convince someone, would be just to ask questions. My biggest question to people is, are you happy? And I'd be, I'm often surprised how often people are not able to answer that question for me. Are you happy? And happiness really, Gandhi said, for example, that when what you think, what you say, and what you do is in harmony, that is true happiness. Essentially, what that means is, if you are living a life in alignment with your true self, you will be happy. Anytime you're living somebody else's life, or you feel that you're forced to live in someone else's dream, eventually you will break down. Eventually, at some part of your life, you'll recognize, I'm not fully happy. Then it impacts your relationships with your family, with your spouse, with your kids, your work relationships, your relationship with yourself. When people come to me and they say, I don't know why I'm here, I'm just here. So I often tell them, loneliness is not when others don't understand you. It's when you're not understanding yourself. So these are some encouragements that I give to people. You have, whatever our religious backgrounds may be, for all intents and purposes, this is one life you have to live right now. Are you living it to the best of your ability? Are you living it aligned with your true happiness or not? And this is how I would approach mental health.
Right. So Deepika, जो word use किया है आपने, happy, being happy and all, इसके बहुत सारे मायने निकल सकते हैं, right? अगर वर्ल्ड मैप पे देखें तो भूटान एक छोटा सा कंट्री है इंडिया के पास में, और हैप्पीनेस इंडेक्स को जब देखा जाए वो हमेशा टॉप करता है.
बिल्कुल.
और अगर मैं विजिट किया है भूटान को, आई हैव बीन टू थिम्पू एंड पारो, और आई हैव सीन द कंट्री. अगर उसको देखा जाए क्या रिसोर्सेज है वहाँ पे, क्या मॉडर्न है क्या नहीं है, तो वो चीजें नहीं है, और लोग बहुत खुश हैं क्योंकि वो सेटिस्फाइड है अपने सराउंडिंग से और उनको क्या मिला है. आई थिंक यही सबसे इम्पोर्टेंट चीज है कि हमें अपनी लाइफ में कंपैरिजन छोड़ करके ये देखना चाहिए कि आज जो हम हैं जहाँ भी हैं अच्छे ही हैं, और अगर हम उसमें खुश हैं तो हर चीज ठीक होगी. आई थिंक पेरेंट्स को, स्टूडेंट्स को, फैमिलीज को, इन सबको इन चीजों के बारे में बहुत देखना चाहिए. अब इशू है मेंटल हेल्थ का. इशू है कि जो ये डिसऑर्डर्स डॉक्टर्स प्रिस्क्राइब कर देते हैं या सोसाइटी का स्टिग्मा एकदम बता देता है, वेस्ट के अंदर तो स्पेशली लोग अपने आप को आजकल ये इंटरनेट से डॉक्टर्स और साइकेट्रिस्ट बनने लगे हैं. जरा सा सिम्टम दिखाई दिया तो गूगल किया, और डॉक्टर गूगल ने बताया कि मे बी तुम्हारा बच्चे को डिसलेक्सिया है, मे बी ऑटिज्म है, और आप घबराने लग गए. तो उन पेरेंट्स के लिए, फैमिलीज के लिए क्या सजेशन है कि ये क्या कर रहे हैं, उनको क्या करना चाहिए when in doubt?
Absolutely. When in doubt, I think mental health professionals are the most underutilized resource in our community today. This is what I tell them. If you're having some sort of physical illness, मान लीजिए आपको headache है, right? And that headache isn't going away. You try to take some over-the-counter medication. You try your own nuskhe and it doesn't work. Then you ask your family and friends. Then you ask the Google doctor. You try everything and it doesn't work. Eventually, what will you do? You will probably go to a medical doctor to say, please, can you tell me why is this coming up? Why is this headache not going away? Just like that, if you're coming up with difficulties in learning, thinking, your children, emotional challenges, not behaving, this, that, or the other, academic difficulties, go to the professionals who are trained in that, and they can help you figure out what's the right reason. Don't be afraid of it. There is no labeling, because just because you're going to someone, an expert who's professional in dealing with these problems, there's no labeling. Most of these sessions, they're all confidential. Of course, we have some, legal requirements that we have to protect people who might hurt themselves or somebody else, or if there's abuse. But outside of that, it's a professional opinion, and you should seek that.
Right. Yeah, but they should look into it as a professional opinion and go and get the services, get the help.
Yes.
But do you blame Bollywood or the movies in one way or the other, the way they portray people
Hmm.
who are in this particular profession, right? Be in counseling or being a psychiatrist.
Hmm.
Especially in the horror movies of Bollywood, they will bring in someone and who will be having a background of a psychiatrist or something, and they
Mhm.
do something, and they say it's a shrink or whatnot. So, do you sometimes feel that that has also built a stigma around this profession in certain cultures, and the
Yeah.
seriousness of that has lost a bit?
I think I agree with you. There, it's been caricaturized a lot in our movies, but also there are some more recent movies that are coming out. Like Dear Zindagi was one where, I mean, of course, we're taking it with a grain of salt because at the end of the day, it's a Bollywood movie. But
Mhm.
yeah, minimizing of mental health sometimes happens a lot across our culture in art forms, popular art forms like Bollywood. So I agree with you. I wish there was more accurate representation of how we help. I wish I could remember some names off the top of my head that I could talk to you about. But a lot of Bollywood stars that are coming forward, like Deepika Padukone,
Mhm.
talking about depression openly. I'm so glad. Vishal, who's the judge of Indian Idol, he talks openly about going for therapy and the remarkable change it has made for him in his life. I hope more celebrities would come forward and talk about this so we can. It's just normal. If you had a fever, if you had diabetes, you would get treated for it. The same way mental health works. So I
Mhm.
agree with you, but thank you for that question. I'm glad that it's in your purview too.
Yep, yep.
Yeah.
So, racism and discrimination also place
Hmm.
extra pressure, right? And you say that you have also gone through some kind of bullying while you were in the school.
Yeah.
And with ethnic minority communities, sometimes they're not sure where to go,
Yeah.
and that there could be a gap in language and cultural understanding. I
Hmm.
remember the place where I used to stay a couple of years ago. We had a neighbor.
Hmm.
They were not educated,
Hmm.
but the child was born here in Canada, and
Yeah.
parents are not able to read what the letter from the school says. They take a friend of theirs to the
Hmm.
school to interact with the faculty, the teachers at the school, and that person can speak yes and no in English, and
Yeah.
that was the level of this person who's going to interact with the faculty.
Wow.
So one day, this lady comes with a letter that there's this some letter which has arrived from the school. Can
Yeah.
you read and tell us what they're saying?
Yeah.
Um, I was surprised, and I was surprised that they have signed on a document to be kept in record in the school that they understand and accept the fact that their child is of special needs.
Hmm.
They have never got the child tested for anything, just because there was no English environment at home. Now this
Yeah.
child has been categorized as someone of special needs, and these
Wow.
documents then remain in the file for literally long time, right? 20, 30 years.
Hmm.
And so language barrier, right? So
Yeah.
how do you tell these people that, okay, it's go find someone from your own community, right? And they will never accept the fact. And you know this, Deepika, that in
Hmm.
Asian culture, especially in India, if you
Hmm.
say to someone, I feel I have depression, or I feel that I have some ailment, I'm not mentally fit,
Yeah.
it's not taken seriously. And if someone points out, if a teacher points out to a parent that your child might need support,
Yeah.
and the parent might end up saying, एक थप्पड़ लगाएंगे ठीक हो जाएगा मेहनत करेगा अपने आप दिमाग दिमाग खराब कुछ नहीं होता. So,
Hmm.
do you see that things coming up in this culture?
I do. That was a lot of the outreach that I did when I was in Toronto. I worked in children's mental health. So I worked directly with school systems, multidisciplinary teams, school boards,
Mhm.
psychology, psychiatry, community partners. I realized that there are so many factors that go into this. Raising awareness, telling, we have to take into account these parents. What are their current struggles? You know, are they just struggling to make ends meet?
Mhm.
What are their economic struggles, financial struggles, relationship, emotional struggles? To what extent do they have the capacity to understand? And because when you understand these things, you have to make the time, space, and energy to parent your child differently, which takes a lot of energy and strength. We need people who can appropriately connect with them and help them understand this. And for that, we definitely need people from our own community, our interpreters. There's interpretive services in Canada, So many community agencies that can connect with these parents and help them. All we can do is help them understand the risk of what might happen if we don't intervene with their kids now. What support do these parents need from us to make it easier for them to learn this, to pay attention to mental health? Because if you're struggling to make ends meet, then for you, mental health is a luxury. It's a privilege. I don't have time to look after mental health right now. I'm just struggling to put food on the table. So many factors like that, I think we need to take into account holistically. But outreach is necessary. Awareness is necessary.
Yeah,
Mhm.
awareness is key actually to actual addressing this particular problem. But
Yes.
it is also observed that certain families, if they know that X person is going through a mental trauma or depression,
Yes.
instead of going out and supporting that person,
Mhm.
sometimes they tend to tell other people, don't bother this person because he or she is going through this. And then they push them towards a corner,
Yeah.
which aggravates the issue. So,
Yeah.
shouldn't we be integrating our family members who have these problems and be
Absolutely.
supportive to them, or just focus on medication?
That's an amazing point. Thank you for raising that. If there's one message I can send through this is please don't do that. Please don't minimize your family members' psychological, emotional struggles. Take them seriously. This is how we have a high rate of suicide in youngsters today. People need support and they need support. We are a collectivist culture. हम लोग हर चीज में जब बोलते हैं कि परिवार साथ में चलता है, जब एक परिवार के मेंबर को कोई प्रॉब्लम है तो हम ये नहीं कह सकते कि ओके इसको खुद डील करने दो, बाद में जब ठीक हो जाओगे। दैट मीन्स आर वी ट्राइंग टू टेल आवर फैमिली मेंबर्स कि ओनली जब तुम बिल्कुल ठीक होगे तभी हम तुम्हें परिवार का हिस्सा मानेंगे, तभी हम तुम्हें अपना सपोर्ट देंगे। ये बात सही नहीं है। वी हैव टू हर किसी फैमिली मेंबर की प्रॉब्लम को ठीक तरीके से समझना, उसको सही तरीके से मदद दे पाना, ये है हमारी कल्चर, ये है हमारा एक्चुअल संस्कार। And this is something that we cannot let go of. So let's not stigmatize mental health. Depression is a very real thing. Anxiety is a very real thing. Parents also need to understand that kids who are growing up in this culture in today's day and age have so many more stressors. Digital media, there's so much technology to keep up with, right? Our sense of insecurity आ जाती है, self esteem नीचे हो सकता है, काम पे teams कैसे काम करती हैं. You have to exercise independent thinking, critical thinking. You have to be able to make decisions on your own. And if we don't allow our kids support in these manners, they will struggle. Same thing with young adults who are getting married. If a spouse in a relationship is going through depression and the other partner thinks this is तुम्हारी problem है, तुम solve करो, ये मेरी problem नहीं है, तो that is not the right way of dealing with it. Together we have to support that person in getting the right support for them without stigmatizing it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. Very valid that we need to come together and support our family. और संस्कारों की बातें अच्छी हैं और बहुत डीप रूटेड संस्कार हमारे हैं भी, हम कह सकते हैं। पर जो चेंजेस सोसाइटी में हो रहे हैं, स्पेशली आज की डेट में, कह सकते हैं 20 साल पहले जो साउथ कोरिया का हाल था, अब हिंदुस्तान उस तर्ज पे जा रहा है, जहाँ पे हिंदुस्तानी यूथ जो है वो अपने आप को हिंदुस्तानी मानता नहीं है, वो हिंदुस्तानी कल्चर को फॉलो करना नहीं चाहता है, वो वेस्टर्न के कल्चर से निकली हुई हर वो चीज को एक्सेप्ट करना चाहता है जो उसको बड़ी अच्छी लगती है, पर वो इन रियलिटी को नहीं समझता कि जरूरी नहीं है कि मूवी में जो वेस्ट दिखाया जाता है वो एक्चुअल में हो। What I'm trying to say is कि in a lot of media they show things which don't exist. People in Asia probably won't ever understand the concept of your physical space, right? और उनको लगता है कि भाई यहाँ तो हर चीज बहुत ओपन है। और I heard someone, an international student, and who said that his intention to move to Canada is not because Canada might provide that person a quality education, but just because it's an open culture and he'll be able to smoke weed and have alcohol and drugs. That's why he wants to move there. तो वो कल्चरल एलियनेशन अब बहुत बढ़ रही है हिंदुस्तान में। शायद उसको सपोर्ट चाहिए होगी, आई डोंट नो किस टाइप की, पर लोग आजकल इस टाइप की सोच के साथ बाहर आना चाह रहे हैं। बात करते हैं सोसाइटल बिहेवियर की।
Yeah.
और पैनिक अटैक्स की और ओवरडोज की, काउंसलिंग कैसे हेल्प कर सकती है?
Hmm. Suicidal behavior is an outcome of unchecked mental health, right? It could also be substance abuse induced. It can also be because of a medical reason. But suicidal ideation, for the most part, happens when a person has been dealing with some negative emotion for such a long time that there's a sense of doom, hopelessness, and powerlessness. In those moments, if somebody can learn to recognize those signs in them, ask them directly, how are you thinking about this? And intervene with the right help, we can help that person look at things differently, right? So suicidal ideation, again, in my experience, it is stress built up over such a long time where we've not been able to recognize that this person needed help. There's a taboo about talking about things. So the person, out of shame or guilt, doesn't even talk about it. So the only solution to this is that we need to start talking about it. Let's develop not just our IQs, but also our emotional intelligence, where we can not shy away from, hey, usually you hang out with friends a lot. Usually you're always so talkative and full of life. For the last 1 week, I've been noticing that you're so quiet. Is everything okay? Is anything you want to talk about? You always go out and eat with us. At lunch, at work, you always used to join us. Now lately you haven't been. What's going on? Is everything okay? Hey beta, you used to call me every week. For the longest time I haven't heard from you. I'm worried. Is everything okay? How can I help? These are important things we need to keep in mind to notice changes in behavior, mood, affect, and intervene at the right time and get them to the right help. So yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So in nutshell, there is a possibility for us as family members or as friends to
Yeah.
observe. So if we observe and if we really care for our friend or member of the family, we should reach out to them when we feel that they're closing down, right?
Absolutely.
Because maybe they need someone to vent out their anger on, or someone who can listen to them, and
Yeah.
that might be an opportunity for these people to relate to a situation and then say, this is what's bothering me, right?
Absolutely. And
uh,
sorry, go.
no, go ahead.
I just remember from that I think I should identify some of the risk factors that we can look for. For example, if someone is talking about suicide and seems fascinated with the idea of death, is starting to give away their prized possessions, is constantly sad and isolating themselves from family and friends, you're noticing changes in eating and sleeping habits. All of these are risk factors that we should check in with. Also, there's a myth in our society that if I asked them about suicide, even if they didn't have that idea, I would then plant this idea in their head. That's not actually true. Research has proven that when we actually talk about this openly, it takes away the shame and guilt associated with having to talk about these things, suicide, for example. And the actual idea or the desire to go through with a plan tends to happen most in periods of utter hopelessness and powerlessness for a person. कोई रास्ता नहीं खुला, मेरी दुनिया एकदम बंद हो गई. I have no other way out. And sometimes in our depression, we cannot even look at ways out. In those moments, if someone can intervene and just open a dialogue, then we can offer hope. We can offer solutions. We can offer just sitting there in silence with them and holding them if they're going through a tough time. So I just wanted to add that some risk factors we should look for.
Right.
Yeah.
Or societal behaviors related, Deepika, हम
Mm.
न्यूज में पढ़ते हैं
Mm.
सेलिब्रिटीज सुसाइड कर लेते हैं.
Yeah.
And then within the society, people start asking questions like, Robin Williams committed suicide. He was such a rich guy.
Yeah.
What forced him to go through suicide? So, is there any relation between someone being super successful in a life which others want to have, but
Mm.
is shallow within, or
Mm.
there is a need for something more which is not being provided to this individual that they end up committing suicide?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I wish that there was one answer for it. It's different for different people. One thing I have learned in my personal experience, success doesn't actually mean happiness. You could have all of the, this is why we talk about the need for human beings to find peace and contentment is important. And depression has many reasons. We're not really sure to what extent he was dealing with depression. Was it something that ran in his family? Sometimes people may have certain parts of our brain that produce certain neurotransmitters. That could be something that may be impacting it and needed a different type of treatment. But it's hard to really know. But what we do know from that is that we cannot ignore these things. And sometimes people are really good at hiding it too. Like we say, a therapist, how many therapists does it take to change a light bulb? What
Right.
would you say, Danny? Right? Only one, given that the bulb really wants to change.
Yep.
So if someone doesn't reach out for that help and isolates, because isolation is a side effect, right? It's a symptom of depression. Then there's not much we can do, but at least those who are closest to us can keep an eye on these things and encourage reaching out for support. There's always remorse after these things happen. Could we have done something more, something different?
Because it can't be undone now. That step has taken already.
So true.
Right. And
yeah.
another thing which we need to understand is when we are at home and when we are around family and the family members want to come and sit down with you and you're busy and you're saying, just go away for a few minutes. We're going to sit later on. Right.
Yeah.
And you're not giving them an opportunity to be with you. Probably that can also instigate few things in future that my own family members have no time for me. So there's no point reaching out to them and interacting with them about my issues, right? तो मैं तो ये कहूँगा कि दोस्त हो, माँ बाप हो, भाई बहन कोई हो, अगर वो आ रहे हैं आपके पास बात करने के लिए, बात कीजिए, टाइम निकालिए, और जब तक जिंदा है तो बात करो ना. और रिमोर्स का फायदा क्या है? अगर आपने सही टाइम पे सही इंटरवेंशन नहीं किया, then it's not going to help anyone. Probably you yourself will fall into depression and other issues related to that. कुछ लोग पूछते हैं दीपिका कि क्या डिप्रेशन, एंजाइटी और डिसऑर्डर्स ये फैमिली में होने की वजह से एक मेंबर से दूसरे में हो सकता है? कैन इट बी कंसिडर्ड अ फैमिली डिजीज कि हर एक को हो सकती है? ऐसा कुछ स्टिग्मा है या होता है ये?
It's possible that it can be mental health issues can be passed on, can have there can be a history of mental health in a family, which could potentially, I think, I don't know the final research on this is, but I do think that people could be more vulnerable to developing certain conditions. But it also depends on individual differences. What is your individual temperament? जैसे हम बोलते हैं कि 2 kids born in the same family will also be different from each other. If you interview one kid versus the other, one kid will say, I grew up in this family. The other kid will say, no, I grew up in this family. So we take different things and we have our own individual resilience and life experience that may shape us. So it's not I will never ever say to someone that there's a hopeless cause for you. No, there's always hope. There's given that you talk to the right people and get the right support.
Okay. तो जो दोस्त हमारे हिंदुस्तान या बांग्लादेश से कहीं से देख रहे हैं, उनके लिए एक तो मैसेज दे सकते हैं कि जरूरी नहीं है कि आपके परिवार में अगर किसी को कोई इश्यूज हैं वो सबको ही हो. अगर टाइमली उसको एड्रेस किया जा सके, हो सकता है कि वो ठीक भी हो जाए और दे कैन गेट बैक टू नॉर्मल लाइफस्टाइल.
बिल्कुल, एब्सोल्युटली. अब जैसे किसी के परिवार में डायबिटीज है मान लीजिए, तो अगर बच्चों को पता है कि ओके हमारी फैमिली में वी हैव अ डायबिटीज का ये ट्रेंड है, यू कैन एक्चुअली लर्न टू मॉडिफाई योर लाइफस्टाइल एंड लुक आफ्टर योर डाइट एंड योर स्ट्रेस मैनेजमेंट वेरी अर्ली ऑन and prevent onset of diabetes in you. Same way, if you know that there might be a vulnerability towards facing life in a certain way, you can learn to train yourself how to face that early on. It's lifestyle management and mental health management.
Right. So mental health जो है अब schools के अंदर promote कर रहे हैं, right? Mental health की services भी provide की जाती हैं.
Yes.
वो force नहीं कर सकते. तो सर्विसेज आर अवेलेबल तो जाना तो खुद पड़ेगा ना. और अगर आप उसको सर्विस को लेना नहीं चाहेंगे तो कोई आपको मदद नहीं कर पाएगा। तो एटलीस्ट वी नीड टू टेल एवरीवन कि अगर आपको कुछ फील होता है और आपके सामने सर्विसेज अवेलेबल है, आपकी प्राइवेसी यहाँ पे अच्छे से कंसीडर की जाती है, एटलीस्ट इन वेस्ट। ये नहीं होगा कि आप क्लिनिक में गए तो वो उठा के फोन आपके रिश्तेदारों दोस्तों को करेंगे कि भाई इसको ये प्रॉब्लम है। यहाँ तो नहीं होता,
नहीं,
राइट? तो दैट्स
नहीं,
अ प्रॉपर सेफ्टी है।
बिल्कुल हमारा लाइसेंस चला जाएगा अगर हम ऐसा करेंगे। तो बिल्कुल यहाँ गवर्नमेंट्स और बोर्ड्स आपको प्रोटेक्ट करते हैं। जितने भी सोशल वर्कर्स हैं, लाइसेंस्ड वर्कर्स हैं, साइकोलॉजिस्ट, साइकाइट्रिस्ट, वी आर बाउंड बाय कॉन्फिडेंशियलिटी एक्सेप्ट फॉर द एक्सेप्शंस जो मैंने आपको बताए। उसके अलावा आप निश्चिंत रूप से बात कर सकते हैं इन लोगों से।
ग्रेट।
Yeah.
एक सवाल बहुत आता है आजकल कि ये बाइपोलर डिसऑर्डर क्या है, राइट? और लोगों को समझ नहीं आता है क्या है। और मैं कह सकता हूँ कि मुझे एक स्टूडेंट मिला था बांग्लादेश में ड्यूरिंग अ रिक्रूटमेंट एक्टिविटी, और I could feel that there was something special about him, but I could also see that he had a brighter side, right? Or he knew that he was going through some of the issues, and he said, "I have a bipolar disorder." और टाइम पे मुझे नहीं पता था क्या है, तो I went in and I studied a bit about it. तो आप बता सकते हो हमारे यहाँ व्यूअर्स को कि क्या होता है bipolar disorder?
Sure. Bipolar disorder basically is characterized by intense and abrupt changes in mood. कभी एकदम बहुत खुश, कभी एकदम depressed, right? And it could last for a few days, a weeks, 2 months. Different parts होते हैं bipolar के, but in a general sense, it can go to complete mania, where the person just feels like they're on the top of the world. I can do anything. It to the point that they might engage in risky behaviors, thinking that they are invincible and can do anything. To mania to that extent, and sometimes they will just completely drop down and depressed and not be able to be completely sad, not be able to engage, low energy, fatigue, lethargy. In both these situations, the intensity, the highs of either side can lead to risky behaviors and suicidality. So this is an intense sort of spectrum pe aata hai, bipolar disorder, but people are able to cope with it through medication, through treatment, psychotherapy. All of these things help the person find balance. How do we help you balance your moods out, right? You take mood stabilizers, but at the same time, learn through a counselor how to make changes in your life so you can balance your moods out. So in order to diagnose it, you must go to a professional who will take a detailed history from you and then can diagnose it properly. अभी कई बार क्या होता है, जैसे couples में झगड़ा होता है, so one person can say ये तो bipolar है, कभी बहुत खुश हो जाती है, कभी एकदम गुस्से में आ जाती है. So I would say कि प्लीज एक दूसरे को डायग्नोज मत करो, लेकिन ये मजाक की बात अलग है, लेकिन we don't want to take it lightly. अगर आप देख रहे हो कि किसी में एकदम मेनिया जा रहा है और एकदम डाउन जा रहा है, then that is a characteristic of bipolar. That person should get assessed and get the right help.
कुछ एग्जांपल्स दे सकते हो बाइपोलर डिसऑर्डर के?
So, for example, Dear John is a wonderful movie. I believe that's the name of the movie with Richard Gere. I would recommend people to watch. It's a serious one, but a person could come and say, "Oh, I can jump off this building. I am so amazed. I can do anything." And they'll talk really fast. And you know what? I was up all night and I just organized this and I just did that. And I called this person and I got my social media working and I've got this working. I've got that working. Everything is done. What else? What else can I do? Oh my God, I can do anything. I can drive with my eyes closed. I can jump off. Things like that. This is an extreme example I'm giving you. And then the low would, of course, look a lot like depression, where like their speech, maybe they're probably not even talking as much. They're not giving you eye contact. They haven't called anyone in a long time. Suddenly the world is over, doomsday. कुछ भी नहीं हो पा रहा है, कुछ भी अच्छा नहीं है, मुझे खाने का मन नहीं कर रहा है, I don't want to talk, things like that. So this is a very sort of highs of both ends I'm showing you. It can go on a spectrum, but essentially this is what we might be looking at.
Okay. मुझे याद आ रहा है किसी के बारे में, काफी टाइम पहले ये इंडिविजुअल जो है इसने दिल्ली यूनिवर्सिटी से ग्रेजुएशन किया, उसके बाद एक और ग्रेजुएशन किया, अपने घर पे बैठा है तो अपने फादर से कहता है कि मैं सोच रहा हूँ मुझे कुछ दिनों के लिए छुट्टी चाहिए, मैं कुछ नहीं करना चाहता, तो क्या मैं कर सकता हूँ? फादर ने और मदर ने कह दिया कि हाँ ठीक है, तो
हाँ,
छुट्टी में कोई जरूरत नहीं है कुछ काम करने की, और ये शख्स अपने कमरे में चला जाता है और पूरी लाइफ फिर वो उस घर में उस कमरे में निकाल दी, कभी बाहर गया ही नहीं,
वाह,
राइट, कभी नहीं निकला बाहर। और उसको फिट्स पड़ने लगे कुछ डिफरेंट टाइप के, और वो कमरे में लगी हुई तस्वीर को देख के कहे कि ये जैसे सिर्फ आपको पता है लोगों के घरों में भगवानों की मूर्तियां फोटोज लगी होती हैं,
या,
तो वो उस फोटो को देख के कहे कि रात को ये मेरे कमरे में आता है, रात को ये मुझसे बात करता है, ये मुझे ये चीजें कहता है, तो वो क्या होगा उस इंसान के साथ, क्या वो ऐसी किसी सिचुएशन से गुजर रहा था? पर क्योंकि हिंदुस्तान में
या,
जब लोगों को अवेयरनेस नहीं थी तो वो इन चीजों को समझ नहीं पाए, उन्होंने रिलेट कुछ और से किया, किसी ने कुछ कर दिया इसको,
या,
इंस्टेड ऑफ डीलिंग कि ये कोई मेंटल इशू हो सकता है, उन्होंने उसको रिलेट कर दिया, कोई जेलस था उसने इसको कुछ खिला दिया तब से इसको ये होता है। तो उस पर क्या बोलते हो आप?
This is a complicated question because जो आप बता रहे हो सुनने से तो मुझे लग रहा है definitely we should have done a mental health assessment on this gentleman, but हमारे कल्चर में मान्यताएं भी इतनी हैं, राइट? लोग अपने नॉलेज के हिसाब से मदद करने की कोशिश करते हैं। Our goal in human existence is to find meaning of our life experiences, and as a culture we try to find different ways to find meaning and solutions to a problem. That's why, people go to astrologers and Reiki practitioners or other holistic practitioners. And I believe that a lot of these things work because I have seen them in my own life. But when it comes to, I think another thing I would encourage people to add कि आप अपनी मीनिंग जो आप मानते हो वो मत छोड़ो, लेकिन एक और सोल्यूशन भी ट्राई करके देख लो, एक मेंटल हेल्थ प्रोफेशनल से भी कंसल्टेशन ले लो। हो सकता है इट्स अ साइकोटिक ब्रेक वी आर लुकिंग एट, मे बी देयर इज समथिंग मेडिकेशन से इतना काम हम ला सकें उनमें कि हम उनको कमरे से तो बाहर ला सकें, शायद, आई डोंट नो, बट I cannot imagine the extent of pain the family members might have gone through with this gentleman, watching him deteriorate like this. And so I would just like to offer another solution. In addition to everything else you try, please also try speaking to a counselor, a psychologist, or a psychiatrist. That would be my recommendation.
Right. Or good recommendation, I can say for that particular person, whenever he had these fits, his eyes will turn red, he will start drooling, he'll be very angry, and then he'll be very abusive. So all of these things happen, right? And probably it was not tested at the time, and could have got the support and could have survived, right? But couldn't, unfortunately. अभी आपने बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग बात कही कि एस्ट्रोलॉजी, रेकी, ये सब चीजें हेल्पफुल हैं. आई एग्री टू दैट पॉइंट दैट यस दे आर हेल्पफुल, बट ऑन द सेम साइड आई विल से दे आर सप्लीमेंट्स, राइट? तो अगर डॉक्टर की जरूरत है तो डॉक्टर से दवाई लो, कंसल्टेशन लो, और अपने फेथ को मेंटेन करें, दैट्स फाइन. बट आप ये कहें कि मैं ज्योतिषी के पास जाऊंगा और उसने अंगूठी पहना दी है और डिप्रेशन खत्म हो जाएगा, कुछ नहीं खत्म होने वाला.
Well, again, you're right. There may be different schools of thought on it. But as a counselor, when I'm working with somebody from any cultural background, right, it is something like for me, I have certain beliefs. And if I'm going to someone for help, if a family member of mine is struggling with anything, you better believe I will try everything in my power, whatever I know, to help that person. And within that, whatever I'm aware of will help this person. Right? This is how I see. मैंने सुना है कि कोई इनके पास गए थे तो उनसे मदद मिली. मैंने सुना था कि इस पूजा से मदद होती है, तो डेफिनेटली वो सब चीजें भी मैं ट्राई करूंगी. उसी में अगर कोई ये भी बोले कि मैंने सुना है कि ये काउंसलर, ये साइकोलॉजिस्ट, ये साइकाइट्रिस्ट इसको ट्रीट करते हैं, आप उनके पास भी जाके देखो. I would really like to encourage our community to also add us as an additional support. Maybe शायद हमसे solve हो जाए, क्योंकि जो आप describe कर रहे हो, hallucinations and delusions, these are two symptoms, very relevant and active symptoms of schizophrenia or psychosis, right? It could be genetic, there could be so many reasons for it, but right assessment for it and right help is necessary. जब ये सब चीजें try करो, so I don't want to ever minimize आप लोग किसी का belief system. I just want to be added as another support for you. Maybe
Right.
I can help. Yeah.
Well, I personally feel that astrology is very scientific if it's practiced in a good manner. But I will not trust someone who's sitting on the roadside with a parrot and trying to tell you your future. I might not believe that person, but I will agree with someone who knows what the longitude or latitude is and where the planet is positioned. But on
Yes.
the other side, if I know that this person needs some support from a psychiatrist or a counselor, I will get that first and then use all those things. I'm not questioning the other person's belief system, but I'm trying to say is मानो जिसको मर्जी मानो, but
Yeah.
अगर जो काम दवा करेगी वो दवा
Mm.
ही करेगी.
Mm. Yeah.
ठीक है, दुआ असर कर सकती है बिना दवा के नहीं.
Yeah.
That's what I feel. Um,
Sure, absolutely. दुआ दवा दोनों में बहुत एक दुआ में प्लेसिबो इफेक्ट भी हो सकता है, दवा में भी प्लेसिबो इफेक्ट हो सकता है. But you're right. I think it leaves people open to be taken advantage of by those who can take advantage of them in this occasion. So, but emotionally भी मैं समझ सकती हूँ कि लोग क्यों ट्राई करना चाहेंगे. So I like your emphasis is on also try दवा.
yeah,
और ट्राई करो और उसका देखो क्या असर होता है. बिल्कुल. Yeah.
बिल्कुल. क्योंकि
Yeah.
भगवान भी बोलता है ना कि मंदिर में आने से नहीं मैं मिलूंगा सिर्फ, और इलाज सिर्फ मंदिरों में नहीं है,
हाँ.
इलाज तो आपके आसपास है, तो उसको ढूंढना बहुत जरूरी है. एनीहाउ, मेंटल हेल्थ और सेक्सुअलिटी भी बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट इशू है,
Right.
राइट?
Right.
और कुछ कल्चर्स में being member of LGBT community is still frowned upon, right?
Mhm.
और ये भी देखा गया है कि जब कोई अपने आप को कहता है मैं गे हूँ या बाइसेक्सुअल हूँ, और उनको सपोर्ट सिस्टम्स उतने प्रोवाइड नहीं किए जाते.
Hmm.
दिखता है इवन इन वेस्ट,
Hmm.
एशिया अफ्रीका में तो है ही, तो उन लोगों के लिए कैसे ओवरकम किया जाए? क्योंकि कई लोग कह देते हैं कि there is no such thing as a member of LGBT, like you can't be lesbian or gay, you're born like this or that. So
Yeah.
what do you say to these people?
Anyone who stigmatizes sexuality like that is wrong, because sexuality is closely related to how we identify with ourselves. It's very personal to us all. It's our experience of who we are attracted to, how we want to express it, who we identify as. When a society fails to acknowledge us, again, going back to that quote, that if you're not allowed to live your true self, you will not be happy. If you have to hide your true self, you will not be happy. The same way, if we're not accepting people owning up to being of a certain sexual orientation, which may not sit well with whatever the normal hegemonized societal thinking is, we're doing that member of our society an injustice. We're saying we will only accept you when you look, speak, act exactly like us, which is not something I think we should aspire to be as a society. It's very challenging. It's become so acceptable to own up to your society, to your sexuality today, right? Which is why a lot of people are wanting to live the life that they feel aligned with. It's important for us to find the right supports for those who may be struggling with it. Some sad cases I've heard is, someone may not be maybe gay, or and was forced to get married to the member of the opposite sex and have to live a certain life, have to produce kids, and eventually that person breaks. It's not fair to the spouse that they got married
Right.
to. It's not fair to them. It's not fair to anybody. Why waste a life? Let's try and understand them. Why waste so many lives?
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, sexuality is a very evolving mental health issue, and we really need to pay attention to it and accept people as who they are. But there are so many mental health services available for the LGBTQ community today. I'm glad that so many of us are normalizing it. I love Canada, how it embraces LGBTQ and diversity. I think this is the time for us to rise and support.
Right.
With pride.
Totally, with pride. Or Canada is doing a great job in helping out people, irrespective of their sexual orientation and whatnot. So it's okay. And I feel like you should be what you are. You should do what you feel like, and it's up to you what you want to decide.
Yeah.
Uh, so a lot of people sometimes when they interact with us, and
Hmm.
a lot of us from the Asian or Southeast Asian background, and then they
Yeah.
tend to comment on things like, "Oh, you come from a culture where sexuality is such a taboo," and my reaction to that is might be a little bit different. And I'm like, you think we have anything against sexuality? We
Yeah.
come from a background where Kama Sutra was given to the world. It was not something which came out of itself. So maybe in the past, that country and people in that part of the world were very open, and it
Yeah.
was only after invasions and then new cultures came in that you
Yeah.
closed down, right? So we need
Yeah.
to educate people on all levels.
Yeah.
In the same way, from this point to depression, there have been treatments available, but
Hmm.
I've seen a lot of people say that depression is often mentioned as a silent killer,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
patients have struggled to overcome the ailment, right? So,
Yeah.
what is the difference you see between depressive disorder and a clinical depression, as from the practical side, and educate people a little bit about that?
All right, licensing board exam on.
Yeah.
मेरे लिए दोनों same है.
Okay.
Clinical depression, major depressive disorder are the same, and we're looking at symptoms of depression,
Uh,
which would be again changes in eating and sleeping, changes in social interactions, isolating from others, a persistent sadness. If you're seeing someone being persistently sad, it's not getting better for two
mhm,
weeks or more. Lot of low energy, losing energy, lethargy, not being able to carry on with day-to-day expectations or requirements. These are symptoms of talking about, self-harm and suicide also. These are all indications of depression
mhm.
and something that we need to look. Yeah. Mhm.
Um, अभी यहाँ पे हम लोग बहुत चीज सुनते हैं इसके बारे में, पोस्टपार्टम डिप्रेशन
Yeah.
और डिप्रेशन टू न्यू मदर्स, किस वजह से होता है वो, क्या रिलेशनशिप है उसकी?
Yeah. So postpartum depression या peripartum depression जिसको हम बोलते हैं, it could be because of so many things. Women after having given birth, their hormonal changes, right, that impact women, which really can mess up your emotions. It can really feel like the world is ending and it's so sad. You feel stuck and claustrophobic. You feel low energy. You're not able to even enjoy your newborn baby sometimes. The depression can feel so real. Similar symptoms we might see in a new mom, for example, after delivery. These are the cases where I would really recommend them to go back to their doctor and seek, medications help with that, in elevating the mood, and also psychotherapy would help with that. Yeah, and not to take it lightly. Sometimes there can be shame that, oh, you just became a new mom. You have such a beautiful baby. What do you have to be sad about? You have this wonderful home, wonderful husband, everything you have. Why are you so sad? And again, it's the same thing. If they're feeling it, let's take it seriously. It could be something that may not even be in their control.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So do you think because of these symptoms in the past also people were aware of these things,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
that's why in certain cultures it was recommended that at the time of delivery the female goes to her parents' house and is with her family? Was
Hmm.
there something related to a support system to be provided to her, or how
It
do
could
you see that?
be. It could be, it's said that, it's easier to connect with your own parents because they will give you more of a benefit of doubt and pamper you. I wish that we became where you can go to your husband's family and your own family, and everyone would know how to support you in the
Mhm.
way that you need to be supported. Men also need to develop the same level of emotional intelligence that we say are natural to women. That's not the case, actually. But yeah, perhaps that was the reason. I think it's a cop out that, hey, I don't want to deal with it. Go to your parents' home and take care of it and come back. I think we need to wrap around. We need to
Right.
all wrap around her, hold her, let her know it's okay. We have you. We got you. You want to have your mom here. You have your mom here. We'll support you together.
Together as a
Yeah.
family. Yep, that's important.
Yeah.
Um, some people ask about phobias and disorders and OCDs.
Yeah.
right? Cleaning your house every half an hour, vacuuming, or
Mhm.
washing your hands every 10, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Uh, can that become severe for some people?
It absolutely can, because underlying it all is some anxiety, right? And if we leave that unchecked for a long time, the compulsions and repetitions can become, the obsessions can become more severe. So it's on a spectrum, right? We're all on a high level of anxiety to, low level of anxiety to moderate to high. During times of heightened anxiety, you would notice that repetitions and compulsions becomes more severe, right? Like sometimes if you're nervous and you have a lot of nervous energy, you might be eating a lot and
Hmm.
not even recognizing you're eating. It just becomes like oh, okay, I just need to eat because this is what I do to deal with my nervousness. That is a part of a repetition, right? So yes, anxiety underlies a lot of these things. Same things with phobia.
Hmm.
Is something could have happened to us, or for no reason at all, even sometimes we could become afraid of a particular thing, experience, or person, for example. And again, anxiety underlies it, and it's important to learn how to deal with it if it's impacting your day to day life. If you've been managing it and it works for you, no problem. But if it isn't, then I would recommend get the right help.
I think I need help. I need help with like that. Listening to you is like, oh yeah, there could be something, and I'm like, for me,
Uh huh.
back in India, I would
Hmm.
not enter the washroom if I see a freaking lizard on the wall.
Oh.
Right? I'm like, oh, okay, no ways. Need to get this thing out first, and then only. Maybe that's my phobia. And I'm glad that I'm in Canada and I don't have to deal with it because we don't see lizards crawling on the wall. Uh,
Yes.
so we're
फिर तो
blessed.
हम दोनों को है ये phobia. The
What?
only way we can cure it is through exposure therapy.
I
But I don't
think
want to go there.
it's-
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense.
right. Yeah, yeah. तो
Yeah.
सारी सिचुएशंस को हैंडल करने के लिए हमें यही
Mm.
करना चाहिए कि अर्ली साइकोसिस प्रिवेंशन सेंटर जैसे बने होते हैं, राइट?
Uh-huh.
उनमें लोगों को अप्रोच करना चाहिए और दे शुड रीच आउट फॉर ट्रीटमेंट। उसके अलावा तो कुछ नहीं कर सकते ना।
अगर साइकोसिस रिलेटेड कंसर्न्स हैं तब तो डेफिनेटली साइकोसिस स्पेसिफिक ट्रीटमेंट सेंटर्स में जाना चाहिए, लेकिन अगर नॉर्मल एवरीडे स्ट्रेसेस हैं तो उसके लिए आप काउंसलिंग के लिए जा सकते हैं, राइट?
तो एज अ काउंसलर, जब आप डील करते हो लोगों के साथ जिनको सीरियस मेंटल हेल्थ डिसऑर्डर्स हैं या इश्यूज जिनके बारे में और लोगों से वो बात नहीं करना चाहते, आप अपने पेशेंट को क्या सपोर्ट, किस किस लेवल की सपोर्ट प्रोवाइड कर सकते हो?
वेल, किस किस लेवल की सपोर्ट प्रोवाइड कर सकती हूँ? आई थिंक मैं सारे सपोर्ट प्रोवाइड जस्ट किडिंग.
ओके।
Basically, when clients are coming to us, हमारा मेन मकसद ये है is to help our clients understand themselves better, right? They
राइट।
come for so many different reasons. Some people just come that I just want to learn about myself better so I can be better in my relationships. I can maximize my strengths and work on my challenges. So our goal is to help clients develop the right insights about themselves as we talk to them as a neutral party, asking them the right questions, helping them develop more awareness about why do I do this? क्यों मुझे रिजल्ट से डर लगता है? कब मेरा ये डर शुरू हुआ? क्या इस डर की वजह से मैं इंडिया ही नहीं जाता हूँ? अगर ऐसा होता तो डेफिनेटली you would have to be treated. But it's helping a person develop more awareness about themselves, the way they think, the way they feel, the way they act towards themselves, others, or in the world at large. So that is the kind of support. It's a holistic support. We also look at your physical health. So I often tell my clients we're looking at human beings maximizing their potential when 4 areas of our lives are balanced, which is our heart, body, mind, and soul. So your heart represents your sense of connection with others. Do you feel that you are connected in a positive way to a community, to your intimate relationships, to others around you? Your mind represents your ability to productively work towards something, to be able to face challenges in life, to manage stress. Do you think you're able to do that? Your body, of course, is your physical health. If you're not physically healthy, I can tell you a million coping strategies to strengthen other areas, but it may not work for you if you just don't have the energy for it. So nutrition, sleep, exercise, we look at that. And then your soul is your sense of purpose. How do you derive a sense of purpose in your life? What is your why? Why do you want to do whatever it is that you want to do? Is it your dream, someone else's dream? What is your dream? What is your meaning? What is the meaning you want to derive out of your life? Do you look at your life as a victim's life, or do you look at your life as a survivor's life, as a resilient person's life? That is the tweak that we do in counseling to help people identify with themselves better.
Okay, pretty
Mhm.
interesting take on that, Deepika. uh, what you want to do with yourself, what you want to do in your own life. For some people, it's a very difficult question, and they might be 70-year-old and still be like, I don't know what I'm doing here. I'm not too sure what I'm supposed to do. But they have lived a life, and a lot of people look at that person as a role model, and that person himself or herself is not sure what they have achieved so far. So I think
Yeah,
that's pretty normal to
yeah,
happen with a lot of people. Uh,
absolutely.
yeah, I
We
just got
find
a funny.
ourselves,
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead
sorry.
first.
I just
Yeah.
wanted to add to that we find ourselves and we lose ourselves several times in life. And that's the
Okay.
process of
Mhm.
finding and having, if we've lost ourselves, we find, like a lot of people during this pandemic, a lot of our elderly population, those who've retired, are having a hard time dealing with this. You
Mhm.
suddenly lose a sense of purpose, right? Especially for men in our culture, we are their identity is attached to being to working and productively being engaged. Then you think, okay, retire hone ke baad, I will connect with my friends, I will play golf, I will do this, and suddenly you're isolated and locked in a room with no access to your connections.
Hmm.
You lose sight of who you are. What am I doing here? Isn't it easier to just not be here? And these are the severity of things I'm seeing in our elderly population, who are looked upon as these celebrated grandfathers and grandmothers, but internally they're struggling, right?
Right. Right.
Yeah.
और इन सीनियर्स को लेके एक और चीज़ है कि they've lived their life, they've achieved a lot of things, अब they got retired, and
Mm.
there's no meaning left for them. So a
Yeah.
lot of people actually don't enjoy their retirement, and it's also
Yeah.
seen a lot of people die before time, just after their retirement. Why does that happen?
Well, it's a whole shift in lifestyle all of a sudden, right? For every transition like that, like for example, if someone's married and goes through a very difficult divorce, you have to emotionally go through that and then refigure yourself out. Same thing with retirement. It's what you had known about yourself in your life up until 60, 65 years of your life is suddenly changed. I always encourage, and then I want to add hope to it. Human
Mhm.
beings are capable of redeveloping a new vision for themselves. Okay, now what is my goal? What do I need to spend the rest of my time in? In our society, we often say, right, कि अभी retire हो गए तो भगवान की तरफ चलो, spirituality की तरफ चलो. I say it's your individual preference. If now you want to say, hey, I always wanted to learn a musical instrument, जो इतने सालों से मैं नहीं कर पाया. What is your vision? Find energy again. Let's help you figure out your new goal. There's a village in Japan where the elders are known to live 100 plus years. And the secret to their longevity is the way the community is built, the elders are integrated into the community in such a way that youngsters and elders stay connected. चाहे आपके बच्चे हों किसी और के बच्चे हों सब मिलकर as a community we stay connected. And at that stage of our life, I would imagine if I was, let's say, even now I feel that 19 years of having worked here, sometimes I want to teach what I've learned. I can also imagine someone who's lived a life and has so much to impart. Wouldn't they love to connect with others who they can impart their wisdom on? Who would they want to stay connect? Connection helps the heart stay younger and developing a vision for yourself. Yeah.
So the message for the seniors from this platform then would be
Mhm.
get out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
You're retired, but you're not tired. You can still do things which a
Absolutely.
lot of people might never ever dream of doing. So go out, remain busy. I have a very funny question someone sent me. It's going
Mm.
to be the last question. It's like it's difficult for my son to study maths.
Mm.
Whenever we open the maths book, he says the numbers jump at him.
Oh.
So how did he
Mm.
make the equation?
Well, I would get your son assessed for a learning disability, right? And don't get scared by the word disability. It's a challenge.
Mhm.
Maybe he just needs to be taught in a different way. So if he's saying that to you, I would take it seriously, and I would get an appointment with a psychologist who works with learning challenges in children, according to his age group. You can look them up on Google. You can look them up on Psychology Today, and I would get an assessment. A lot of the schools, if the things are still the same, I remember in Canada, school boards offer consultations and assessments from psychology and psychiatry. School social workers, I would talk to one, help them support you and connect you with the right people. The earlier you can get the right intervention for your child, the better it will be for them. It doesn't mean there's something wrong with your child. It just means that they learn a little differently than others, and that's okay.
Okay. So I hope they are going to like your answer.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you very much, Deepika, for giving time. I know it's a very important topic. We need to talk about this, and especially with our community, they need to open up and interact. Thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule. And I'm hopeful people will learn something valuable from this session.
Thank you so much, Danny. I really appreciate it. And all the power to you for the work that you're doing too. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.